All right, Mr. Samuels here, continuing our discussion of energy. Quick review. Remember, we define temperature as a measure of the random motion of the particles in a sample of matter. How fast those molecules are moving, even in a solid, they're still vibrating in place. But the more motion they have, the more kinetic energy, the higher the temperature. We talked about units, Kelvin being the same distance between degrees as Celsius, but we don't put degrees on it because Kelvin has no negatives. 0 degrees Kelvin is the lowest possible temperature. That's why there's no negatives. Remember, if we're measuring molecular motion, if the molecules aren't moving, they can't go any slower. So take a minute to answer the following practice questions, and you can pause the video for a moment now. Okay, so let's talk some more about energy and temperature. A question: does temperature measure heat? We use those words kind of the same way, but think about it for a second. If I have an aluminum frying pan and an iron skillet, and I put both on the stove for the same amount of time, same amount of heat, will they be the same temperature? I think you can figure out the iron's going to be a lower temperature. It takes longer to heat up. Same with a large pot of water versus a small pot. Even though you're adding the same amount of energy to each, they're not at the same temperature. Remember, that has to do with molecular motion. Temperature measures how much the molecules are moving. Take a look at the periodic table. Notice that iron is heavier than aluminum. Each atom requires more energy to get moving to that same speed. So that even though adding energy did increase the temperature in this case, it's not the same thing. Same with the large pot of water. There are more molecules to speed up, so it's going to take more energy to get them going the same speed. So make sure you do write this part down. Temperature does not measure heat. Heat is a type of energy, type of kinetic energy specifically, and it's defined as the flow of energy due to temperature differences, T standing for temperature. So now that you've got the basics, take a minute to write down definitions for each of these terms. Once you finish that, in the next column, I'd like you to write down a common sense definition, a way to remember, a trick, anything that's going to help you understand and remember how to use those vocabulary words in any context. And lastly, I'd like you to draw a little picture for each one. Draw a little picture of something for matter. It could be atoms, it could be, a scale for mass, and, a graduated cylinder for volume, anything you want, some kind of picture to help you learn what each of these words mean.